seconds and counting.
Hey, what's up, guys? Clutch City Entertainment here, back with another video, and today we have another fun little draft hypothetical kind of rumor type of situation here when it comes to the Houston Texans and their decision that will be made at pick 2. At the time of this recording today, Matt Miller and Adam Schefter had a little interesting conversation on the Adam Schefter podcast, where Adam Schefter, I'm sure everyone knows who that is, a very popular, famous NFL insider analyst, where he brought up the hypothetical that the Panthers may be selecting Bryce Young with the first overall pick in the draft, and where the Texans don't take a quarterback with the second overall pick, which many have thought the Texans were pretty much all but guaranteed to take a quarterback at pick 2. But over the last couple of days, we've kind of been hearing otherwise, and a lot of people have hinted that Texans potentially taking Will Anderson. Matt Miller, who was on that podcast, spoke after Schefter mentioned that and said that, first of all, that many people had told him after Matt Miller thrown out the possibility of C.J. Stroud being a Panther that actually he should be talking more about Bryce Young being the first pick in the draft. Matt Miller also went on to mention that the Texans have Will Anderson as their best player on the board. He said that the Texans gave Will Anderson that flawless grade, basically, perfect, unanimous grade that no team really ever gives out to any prospect ever. Obviously, that's very, interesting. The fact that they gave him this great grade. That doesn't necessarily mean that the Texans are just going to take the best player on the board. They may take a quarterback because they feel like they need to take a quarterback. Quarterback is definitely a need, the Texans, but if they truly do believe Will Anderson is the best player on the board, and you hear people like Adam Schefter talking more and more and more about how the Texans may not take a quarterback at 2, Will Anderson is someone who is very likely a possibility for the Texans to take it 2. So, Jacob, with this news coming in, what do you think about Will Anderson? Is it a possibility that he will be a Texan?
I for sure think it is possible that he is the Texans pick. I think he'd be a great fit in D'Amico's defense, and we obviously need pass rush help. I think the pass rush room, especially the edges, may be the weakest group on the team. I think it's there with quarterback and probably receiver. But the reason that I think I'm okay with it is because I trust D'Amico with defensive evaluations. If he really does think that Will Anderson is his generational prospect and he is a flawless prospect that we've never the best edge we've seen in a while, I would trust him with that. He's been around great edge players with the Texans and Nick Bosa, J.J. Watt, Mario Williams. He's been around a ton of really good edge players, so I would trust him with that evaluation. But it obviously brings up the question, what are you going to do with the quarterback spot?
Yeah, exactly. And just a little bit more here about Will Anderson. For those who don't know, he is a defensive end, edge rusher from Alabama. He is a 3-year starter. He had 7 sacks in his freshman year, where he played 13 games and 13 games started. He started every game in 2021, where he played 15 games and had 17.5 sacks, which means he had more than 1 sack per game. This past season wasn't as electric as it was the previous year before, but he did play in 13 games and had 10 sacks. He has 34.5 career sacks in his college career. He's pretty much got the typical measurements that you look for in an edge rusher. He's 6'3", 250, decently sized arms at 33 7/8. He's got hand measurements at 9 7/8. He ran a 4.6 40-yard dash. He's got all the tools to be an elite edge rusher. He's got dip. He's got that dip. He's got the bend. He's got good hip flexibility. He's got strong hands. He can be powerful. He can make multiple moves on you. He's got a relatively deep bag, something that you got to look for in an edge rusher. I want an edge rusher that can, make rip moves, counter moves, spin moves, can also power rush and be able to just put everything together. And Will Anderson can 100% do that. He's also a very, very good run defender, and we've seen a lot of explosive tackle for losses from him. I'd say he's definitely one of the best edge rushing prospects we have seen. I'm talking Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa, Joey Bosa, Chase Young. He is right at there when it comes to Will Anderson. He's the consensus #1 player on a lot of people's board. Even though I love these quarterbacks in the draft, I have been so adamant about the Texans, drafting a quarterback, and I believe that they will draft a quarterback. And maybe I'm a little more skeptical now, but during that entire process, Will Anderson has been the #1 overall player on my draft board. So, Will Anderson, for me, I will never be mad about my team drafting the best player in the draft or the best player on their board, because that's what they think, that's what they see. For me, and like Jacob mentioned, is that you need to have a plan at quarterback. If you're going to draft Will Anderson, what are you going to do? Are you going to roll with Davis Mills? Are you going to trade back up into maybe from like 12 to anywhere from 3 to 7 and get Anthony Richardson, get Will Levis? Are you going to maybe go with the veteran route? It's going to be a tricky situation. And Jacob, if the Texans do draft Will Anderson, what do you see them doing at the quarterback position?
I tweeted about this earlier because I thought it was interesting. I'm starting to think that if Bryce does go 1, they will take Will Anderson. And I like Stroud as a prospect, but I don't know if they do. What I think is interesting and it's worth a discussion is Trey Lance. The staff that we have in place, the coaching staff, has been around him for a while. Slowick obviously worked with him in San Francisco. So did D'Amico. There's other San Francisco guys on the staff. They took him 3rd overall, and he's probably not going to be their starter. They signed Sam Darnold. Brock Purdy is more than likely their starting quarterback next year. I would be interested to see if Trey Lance is an option for them because he's a high ceiling quarterback still. You probably could get him. You would not have to give up a 1st-round pick for him, more than likely. I think it would be worth it if you're going to take Will Anderson and you don't want to trade back up to go get Levis or go get Richardson, that would be my first call, would be Trey Lance, because I do not think Davis Mills can be your plan at quarterback. Even if you think he's better than what we all think he is, it's not going to work. He's at best an average quarterback. And you've got to get somebody in there that has star potential.
I agree. I mean, at this point in the rebuild, I'd say this is about year 3. You have to have a franchise quarterback at some point. It seems like they're dragging it on, and it's just going to take forever and ever for the Texans to finally get their franchise quarterback. And I actually like the idea of Trey Lance. If I were to kind of rank what I would do at the quarterback position for the Texans, this includes draft, trade, free agency, I would say Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Trey Lance, and then Will Levis. And then I guess below that, you would say Davis Mills. I'm not too high on Hendon Hooker or Jaron Hall or anything like that. And so it is going to be a lot of decisions for the Texans to make, but the possibility of the Texans drafting Will Anderson is looking very, very, very likely. And I would say that there's nothing to be upset about when it comes to the Texans drafting Will Anderson, because I think he is absolutely the glorified best player in the draft. That's going to be it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like and comment down below, and we'll see you all next time. Peace.